You know, it's kind of like we're in front of one bookcase and then there's another one.
I know they do. They follow us, don't they?
Absolutely.
And it's like, are you like this, Valerie? Do you get rid of any of your books? Are you like this, Valerie? Do you get rid of any of your books?
Okay, so I do. I've gotten a lot better at it. And the way that I justify it is that they're paperback. If I buy the paperback, they're paperbacks and they're recyclable. Otherwise, I would be like literally, I probably got 10,000. Like it would be crazy. I'd have to. So I mean, I hate to, and I definitely keep some. Yes, my dear.
Can you say that again? You do get rid of some of your books.
All right. Okay. So, okay. Because I just thought someone like yourself reading all of those years and the books that you really enjoy, that they can be hard to part with. So what's your process?
So one book that I read as a not very young, but youngish person, well, two books really. One is Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye.
Okay, yeah.
The second one is James Baldwin, If Beale Street Could Talk. So these are two books that I actually buy for people, I buy for friends. So what I should have done, so this is the thing, like, you think about, if you have them early enough in their sort of evolution, they become collector's items, don't they? But if you're buying them like sort of later on, they always have new editions. They always. So it's either you think about yourself as a collector of a couple of authors and you're going to keep the editions that they produce of them, or you're going to think like I do, because I feel like I missed the boat with my early editions, not keeping those. That, you know what, it's paper, it's recyclable, there will be a new edition, I'll get the new edition that comes out, and that way I've got space on the bookshelf, otherwise, I'm overflowing the house.
Do you do what Mr. Tomlin does in terms of audiobooks? Let the book read to me.
I love it. Audiobooks and book summaries.
So, Colin, you are sort of like the sort of ideal demographic for audiobooks. It's men.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Men are the biggest sort of consumers.
Audio, yeah.
And it's because you guys like sit in the car or whatever you do.
That's exactly it.
My sort of reading life, especially now, is a lot of reading for work and not so much reading for pleasure. And so when I do audio now, it tends to be something that I can kind of engage with in a different way. So it tends to be podcasts, or occasionally I'll listen to like a short piece of fiction. And if it's like a book that some of the books I've published, that I'm like, let me listen to the audio and see how it came out, kind of thing. But it's not really, because I have to kind of like have to be really kind of.
I can imagine.
You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of stuff that I read, and I'm fortunate that I get to read some amazing things, but I also have to read some not so great things.
You have to encounter. What did I say? You have to kiss a lot of frogs to get to the prince.
Yes.
Ouch.
And the thing is, it's even worse when the frog doesn't know it's a frog and thinks it's a prince already.
Oh, okay.
I hear that.
Oh gosh. I can imagine in what you do then you get a lot of that coming through.
Yeah.
I mean, so the way that we do it, we acquire our manuscripts either through agents, which is then a much more kind of what's the word I'm looking for? A more complete manuscript. It's a bit more refined. We'll go through other publishers when obviously it's been through the whole editorial process, so it's just it. And we get submissions through our website. We'll make submissions, and you get the gamut, right? So you get the authors, the people who are very clear about what they're doing, on that professional path, understand the process, and they're going to give you a very polished manuscript.
Brilliant.
And you get the people who don't quite know that they're frogs and not princes, and will send you a manuscript that they barely understand the basics of, like, make sure it's a Word document.
Character development, for example.
Yes. Well, character, if it was just that, that's an easy one. But I'm talking about like completely full of typos, not laid out properly, not making sense. They'll say things like, you know, this is the kind of book that's never been seen before. It's a part poet, part, you know, non-fiction part, you know, and literally the minute you read that, you're like, it's sad, I'm done, you know, because
oh dear,
you could
part from, part told.
Yes, it's an idea.
There is a reason why it hasn't been seen before.
That's right. Exactly.
Oh. And
Oh
it's one of those things where, you know, it's like in class, we're like, Miss, why do we have to do English? I'm English. I can speak English. It's all right. I don't need it. I'm like, And, you know, so everybody thinks that they can write.
Yes.
You know, and people have stories to tell, but it's that process of,
understanding that there's a craft to it. And there's value in learning the craft. And tell the people that understand that. And even beyond the craft to it, if you want to have a career, it's about more than one book, right?
Absolutely.
So you have to be able to continue to produce, right? But you get people that, you know, they just have their magnus opus, if you like, and this is it, published, and I'm become a multi-millionaire. And
oh dear, But I actually, on the same sort of vein, you're a publisher, and I think when people hear publisher, they're going to think books, they're going to think writing, they're going to think book selling, bookshops. Can you unpack a little bit about the difference between being a publisher and a bookseller, a bookstore? Because I know some houses may do the combined, but just unpack that a little bit for the audience.
No, it's a great question, and I think you're being quite generous, actually, because I think that most people they don't even make those connections. You know, they don't sort of make a connection between a publishing house and a bookshop. Like, it's like they're two totally different things. But so we're a publisher. We publish commercial trade fiction and some literary fiction as well, commercial non-fiction, a little bit of illustrated books, and a little bit of poetry. And that's all because we publish within the sphere of the support and the inclusion of Black and Brown writers. So we want to be able to facilitate across the breadth of that creativity and try not to be exclusive to one or the other. But we also, you know, we obviously have to be realistic about what we can actually do overall. So, and the trade part is that we're part of the mainstream publishing world, right? So we're not self-publishers. It's not Vanity Press. Your books will be in the bookshops. You know, that's the number one thing. So we produce the books and then we pitch them to the booksellers, and then the bookshops decide whether they want to buy them or not. It's literally and that's really the process of it. The difference as well is, you know, and when I said we are adult trade fiction and non-fiction publishers, which is a different world to inhabit than a children's publishing. Children's publishing is a whole separate entity unto itself, doing the same kind of process, but in a different environment.
Because I don't think people realize that. You know, I've written something and then it's just going to be in a shop.
Yeah, but you know what, to be fair, like, as I said to you before, I'm a Black girl from Hackney. Like, I read books, I didn't know how they were produced. I started my publishing company, and I remember going to we just laugh about it now, but going to London Book Fair for the very first time with one book. And I went there. It was a book that we had acquired from Jacqueline Shaw. It's called Fashion Africa. And I met her at Black Book Swap, which was an organization that was founded by Trisha Worrell. And it was for us as Black people. You met at the time at Cotton's, and everybody bought they wanted to change. Cotton's in Islington. And your books that you wanted to swap. And then there was a panel, and she had people like Alex Wheelsall on there, Culture Newland, Dorothy Coomson, like all these writers. And Jacqueline was on the panel because her book looked at sustainability in manufacturing production of fashion in Africa, and how it would be a viable option versus, you know, going to India where there were all these catastrophes happening in the factories, and with China, the mass production of China. So she had 40 designers in there from all over the world, different races and cultures, and who all produced and manufactured and sourced on the continent of Africa. Wow. It was brilliant, and just great designers in there, and the designs was outstanding. So yeah, that was the first book that I acquired. And then I acquired a novel from Patrick Walsh, who is a Jamaican academic who wrote the book before Marlon James's The Secret History of Seven Killings. So those were the two books that I published. And I went to London Book Fair to find sales and distribution, because that's the thing. Obviously, you've got the book now, you've got to sell it, right?
Exactly.
So I go there and I meet with a sales and distribution company, and she says, and I did know, because, you know, sort of backtracking a bit, but I just finished the Masters in Publishing Studies to get my grounding in publishing, because I didn't have any other way to do it. So I knew what an AI was, which is what they use to sell the book into the bookshops. The salespeople, you give them this one sheet of paper. It's got all the sort of basic key information in there that they can use to sell it in lieu of the actual book. And then she says, so yeah, get me the ISBNs, blah, 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 you know. And I'm at the book fair, and Jasmine Breary, who came on board then, who was working with me, she's in the office, right? So I call her up. I was like, Jasmine, we need to get ISBNs. We're like, where'd you get an ISBN? I had no idea. Who knew? So then thank God for phones and the internet. I'm on the internet, like Neil said, blah, blah, you know, just doing literally searching on.
Fantastic.
Bought ISBNs, found out where they were, created, bought them, sent them to the office. Jasmine made the ISBN, sent it to me on my phone, and I gave it to the woman that day, all in the book fair.
That's fantastic.
Learning as we went along. It was hilarious. Like, we think about it now, like, what were we thinking?
But then the thing is, though, Valerie, you were doing it. You're out there, and you're putting one step in front of the other, you know?
Literally. That's literally what it was, because I did not know.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing I didn't know, because I'm coming from it like you, like, I love books. Of course I'm going to know what to do. I love books, right?
Yeah.
I now have a business. I have a business. Literally step by step, like, oh, now we've got that under our belt. What's next? You know what I mean? Like, literally going through it like that.
That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about the business. You run something called Jacaranda Books. What was the genesis of that? How did that start? You know, what were the influences? And you've just told us some of the early stories about doing the London Book Fair, but you know, how did you get to the point of saying, actually, I want to establish this book, this brand or this business, and this is what it's set out to do?
Yeah, so, you know, even though I'd done that degree and it was amazing, and I obviously met my husband, so what I ended up doing was going back to America. He actually went to DC to study, and then we were there for a year, and then we moved to San Diego, and then I became a mom. So then I was just home having children and out of the workforce. So it was like, literally, like Judy said, one step in front of the other, not really knowing what I'm doing, but getting a sense of, I need to do something. Eventually I come back to the UK. I do this master's course to get me sort of connected to the industry, because I had no connections. And I was trying to get a job like everybody else out of the course. I had, my kids were 9 and 11 at the time. So I'm like, I need to find a job. I was staying at home in my mom's house at the time. And so I was trying to get editorial assistant. That's what everyone wants when they come into publishing. And I was 48 years old, and I was getting nowhere. No one wanted to hire me, and I wasn't getting any internships. And, you know, one lady told me, she's like, you know, they're not going to want... The difficulty that you've got is that if they hire you as an editorial assistant, they're going to feel like you're not going to want to do the work, you know, because you're too old. And I'm like, I just want a job. Like, come on. So eventually, on one of the courses I did, the founder CEO of Profile Books came, Andrew Franklin, who's like, you know, publishing, you know, royalty. For saying that. And but anyway, he came to the course, and we just hit it off, you know. And then a position came open at Profile, but it was for office manager. But like I say, I'm a mom with 2 kids. I cannot be picky, so I took the job. And I knew what I was doing, right? Everybody knows the office manager job. Basically, you make sure there's enough toilet paper in, that the photocopier is working, and everybody's got their coffee when they want it, right? So I understand that role, right? But I really loved the books. I wanted to be in the book world. And also, for me, prior to that, I don't know about you, Judy, but there was that time, and it was, I think, Virago and the Women's Press in particular, they published all of these Black American writers. Do you remember, like, all of these great, and I would read them on the bus, like going to work at the university, thinking I need to be somewhere else, you know. And so, but that at that time in the UK, especially in the publishing world, there was nothing going on. It's not that nothing had happened. You know, I'm always really, really, really clear and concerned about making sure that we give our props to who came before. And we have an amazing publishing tradition in this country, so we weren't like inventing the wheel, we weren't even reinventing the wheel. But at that time, I did notice that there was not a lot of like books that I wanted to read at all, and so it was literally that. It was like, I'm in this amazing publishing house. They do amazing work. I really ideal standard for me as a publisher in terms of how they deliver. And but you know, they're very Middle England, very white, and weeds, you know, and like but you know, really amazing. They are. It wasn't like what I wanted, and I didn't want the job. Like, I did not want to be doing the office manager job for any length of time. I did it for a year. And then I decided I was going to start my own company. And the name Jacaranda. So I sort of potted history, but when I was in California, as I told you, I met my husband, and so I ended up living there for nearly 20 years. So I was not in the UK for a very long time. I lived in San Diego, raising our kids, and in San Diego, there are jacaranda trees everywhere, and there's it's a beautiful purple flowering tree, and I just it's lovely color as well, isn't it? And so I just thought, you know, if I ever do have the opportunity to start any sort of business, I'm going to call it Jacaranda. And I mean, there are a lot of Jacarandas out there. There's an agency Jacaranda, there's a carpet cleaning company, there's like, you know, it's a very popular name. But, you know, it just, for me, it kind of encapsulated what I wanted to accomplish with this book business, which is this global outlook, you know, the focus on Black voices, brown voices, but like also the sort of diasporic experience. You know, when you think about Blackness and who we are as people and how we're represented, it's such a diverse world. Like, people are small, but it's so expansive. And the tree itself is found in South Africa, Australia, you know, all the Americas. So it's just, it represented that global outlook that I really wanted to capture, which was completely sort of in contradiction to everything that was happening in publishing at the time. Focused on white Middle England. That's really what it was. You know?
We were just waiting for you to come along, you know.
Not just me, though.
You know, because it's like, when, like you say, those books that we were reading, Women's Press Virago, you know, he was making jokes about getting rid of books, but the ones that aren't on the shelf, there's a couple of cases in the shed. But I know that they're full of those books that were predominantly American Black female writers. You know,
definitely.
It's good to have more variety.
Absolutely.
You know, more and. Can I ask then, as a publisher, how do you encourage those who want to write or those who want to publish? How, you know, and the newbies, the up and comings?
So I mean, we've been very sort of active or actually proactive in that space. So the biggest thing I can put, there are two big things that we did. So in 2018, we launched our 20 in 2020 campaign, which was, we committed to publishing 20 Black writers in 2020. And the idea was exactly that we wanted to reach those writers who, you know, they're working on their own, they've submitted to other presses, excuse me, some of the bigger presses, and been told, I mean, there's some of the stuff that I heard from authors that I've published, you know, the authors from one part of the world, Black world, and the publisher has already published somebody, but from a completely other part of the Black world, saying, oh, we've already got a Black writer. Sorry, we published, you know, it's like, we published this author from Jamaica and you're from, you know, Lagos, so we can't publish two. We've got our one already. Literally, they were saying that.
And of course, our story is homogenous. So one person tells it, it's all our stories.
It's all our stories. That's exactly the point. That when I talk about the expansiveness of Blackness, like trying to teach people that you haven't got a clue in terms of like who we really are and how we operate. So that list of that 20 the 20 that was eventually boiled down to, is as broad and as diverse as you could possibly imagine. I think and we took on a lot of debut authors, as I said, people who were trying to get their work published and just weren't getting anywhere, and whose books are outstanding. And I think that was the thing for the list, because when you're trying to do something like that, that's really big and it's ambitious, and it's really one of those, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So it's like, let's just go for it. And that's such a beautiful sort of space to inhabit sometimes, actually, just just not knowing. So what we did, but I was hearing a lot of how is it gonna, like, what you're gonna fall flat on your face if you don't have prize winners on this list, or who are you gonna publish? Your brother, your auntie? Like, there's no one. There was such a lot of derision about it, and such like negativity in so many ways.
Is this from within the industry?
Yes, within the industry, people, because people are just like, and also it needs to be said, within our own community, that was coming from some other Black folk as well as other people in the industry, and the ones who were saying, well, who are you going to publish, right, who weren't Black, were the ones who know how they publish, which is they have a lot of money to throw at the 2 or 3 authors that are right under their noses, so they won't in any kind of R&D to find anything beyond what they can actually see at the end of their nose, and they have the funds to support it. So question how I'm going to do it, right? So that's it. We put out the call, and we've got these 20 authors, 10 fiction, and across the board. So we had romance, crime, literary, and then we did 5 non-fiction, amazing books, and 5 poets, amazing poets. So 2020 came around, and we started to launch, and we did the first book, non-fiction memoir, and the first fiction novel, which was set in the Solomon Islands, which is, again, a perfect example of what we're talking about. The author's a Black Jamaican nurse who went to the Solomon Islands as a nurse, fell in love with an islander, and moved there. And then was writing this book about climate change, essentially, because the island that her partner grew up on is now underwater. It's just an amazing book. So can you imagine, like, so you have to meet all the authors. So now we've seen these 20 authors, and we have meetings like this on Zoom, and every time we come off the phone, we're like, what are we doing with our lives? Like, these people are incredible. One after the other, after the other, after the other. And then the sort of like icing on the cake for us is, the list was very successful. We managed to do it, scraped it under the wire. And at the end of that year, we were named Small Press of the Year. And then we became, we got sales and distribution through Hachette UK.
I heard about that. It's very good. Well done.
Thank you. It was huge. It was really huge. But the thing that was most gratifying, I think, about that whole thing was that at least a third of that list ended up winning awards. And one of them, it's a book called Loat by an author called Shola von Reinhold, who is he's non-binary, and or they are non-binary, pardon me. And this book won the James Tate Black Award. It's a literary fiction, and it also won the Republic of Consciousness Prize, which is the prize that the booksellers select for the books. And we sold rights in the US, we sold rights in Brazil. It's such a successful book. It was so important for us to have those sort of markers for so that they can stop making stupid excuses and educate themselves about what's possible for Black writers, So we got stuck in and did the work. And also just prior to that, Magdalene Abraha, who I have to shout out as well, she came to us from Bloomsbury Press. She's a young, just brilliant young mind, and she came up with A Quick Ting On. And A Quick Ting On, these small books, non-fiction books that look at just key aspects of Black British culture, but also it has obviously legs everywhere within the diaspora. And we started with 8 of those books, one on plantain, is it plantain?
Brilliant.
Bamboo earrings, Black British businesses, Afro hair. I mean, Afro Beats was the first one here. And they've just been brilliant. Little books, the packed with information, really well researched, well written. For your young kid, like growing up, wanting to get an understanding of yourself within that framework of Blackness. It doesn't have to be completely restrictive, which is what these books are about, but really educational, really entertaining, and just brilliant.
I think we've featured one of those books. I'm trying to remember which one of them, but we've certainly done A Quick Ting On.
Yeah, excellent.
Which is, it's one of those things when you see it, you think, why haven't we thought about this before? So that's fantastic. Well done to her and you.
Yeah, and so we're bringing it stateside, and it's going global. So
Good.
Those are the kind of things that I'm really proud of. And to sort of answer your question in a long-winded way, Judy, are ways that we support, because those books in particular, all young authors who've never been published. Well, a couple of them published, but not books. So it's an opportunity to give them that foothold in the industry, learn the industry, and move it on to the next level.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Very, very well done on that. And that distribution deal with Hachette, it's a game changer, because for many smaller publishing houses, when they're starting, that's the biggest challenge, isn't it? Distribution.
Yeah, it's the biggest challenge. It's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
It was for us. For 8 years, we were producing these books that were winning and getting listed on longlisted on major prizes, and we couldn't sell them anywhere, because what happens in the publishing world is you end up with these like small kind of aggregator businesses, is what I call them, and they just sort of focus on the books that they know they can sell to make their margin and make their
absolutely,
and then just like leave you stranded, So it's a complete game changer, because it's really hard. What we actually need is our own sales team and our own direct, access to our consumers, which we are working on right now, very, very actively. But it's a really, that's been a massive sort of shift in the way that we think about ourselves. Imagine it's a big machine, and we're still
absolutely
tiny. So we're making it work.
Yeah,
amazing. But it's that persistence to one step in front of the other, and then you get those big shifts. But if you're, if you kind of like feel intimidated by the hugeness of it, sometimes not knowing.
I'm telling you.
Then otherwise, some people would just never get going.
Yeah, you would do.
Be like,
like if everything, if I look back on any of it, I'd just be like, if it came up to me now, I would be like, sorry, no, I can't do it. It's like, because the other part of it is, when you know better, you do better.
Ignorance can be a great source of innovation.
Yes, I love that. That's absolutely true.
Yeah,
absolutely.